Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to My First Business, the podcast. I'm your host, named Parvez, and I'm a relatively new and sometimes clueless business owner. And I wanted to talk to seasoned entrepreneurs to help guide me and inspire me and help me understand the best way to grow my own business. So what mistakes to avoid, how to overcome common challenges, how to identify opportunities, and that's why I created the show for you, dear listener. So if you're new to business or old, I don't care, I'm not an ageist. I bring on guests from all sorts of industries and they are full of wisdom that you'll chew right up. And each episode is going to be like a conversation with a mentor that you never had. My guest today is Michelle Kuehn. First, let me describe the old Michelle. Struggling with confidence, gaining weight, feeling lost, trapped in her own business. Michelle had found herself caught up in a Dubai lifestyle that she didn't really want until she discovered boxing. And for the first time in her life, Michelle felt confident and mentally sharp and motivated and just on fire. With zero handouts and zero experience in running a gym, Michelle decided to kiss goodbye to the PR world and started Real Boxing Only, which is Dubai's first female-owned boxing gym. Today, Michelle has 2 thriving locations and is up at 4 a.m. every day chasing her vision to build 250 franchises worldwide. Michelle is Dubai's very own girl on fire, who's got a no-holds-barred, tough love approach and is constantly inspiring others to live life at their maximum effort. In this episode of My First Business, Michelle and I discuss living life at 100%, losing 700,000 dirhams and coming back from it, her insane backstory as plain brethren, why every entrepreneur needs to be a salesperson, how competition breeds confidence, the dark side of praise and criticism, being intentional about customer experience, the downside of treating employees like family, and why everything in moderation never works. I met Michelle a couple of years ago when we sat down on a table next to a boxing ring, and I was blown away by her energy and passion for her business. And to see her put into action what she has been dreaming of back then is truly inspiring. Get ready for a few laughs and a lot of moments of inspiration for yourself. Without further ado, enjoy my punch-in-the-face conversation with Michelle. Michelle?
Name.
I love it. I love the way you say my name. Everyone loves the sound of their own name, actually. So welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
I thought I'd start somewhere very random, or it seems random, but I think it'll set the tone for the conversation. And I think it'll give people that are listening or watching a bit of more context about you. You can prove me right or wrong. And it has to be about your thoughts on these 2 phrases that I'm going to say.
All right, let's go.
Okay, so the first phrase is rinsing off the cottage cheese, or rinse off the cottage cheese. And the second one is can't get to heaven without trying. What comes to mind when I say those things?
Rinsing off the cottage cheese is offensive because I'm vegan. Sorry.
I thought you were vegetarian.
You asked the first thing that came to my mind. And you can't get to heaven without trying. Well, on my shoulder, I have tattooed that everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one's willing to die. So that's what comes to mind, is that yeah, if you don't die, you won't get to heaven. So you better put in the effort to die.
And what does it mean to put in the effort?
I think people often only use about 40% of effort. And it's because they're afraid of crossing that line of whether it's pain or uncomfortability, like death. Like no one wants to go all the way until they can't get themselves off the ground in physical terms, or kind of risk everything. And not worry about failure. So, yeah, you don't get the reward without the pain.
Right. And the reward could be delayed.
It can
Very
be.
delayed.
Yeah, it can be. Life can be long. So death may not come as soon as you wish.
Not if you're actively seeking it.
Yeah, you could just jump. But I think that's the thing as well. You have to jump. You have to risk it all. And it's not the first time you won't win. The second time, the third time, you've got to be committed to it. And I think when I first heard that saying, which is, yeah, you can't get, no, everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die. I didn't actually understand what it meant at first. I thought, what a stupid saying. Like, I don't even know what that means. I literally told my coach, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And then one day it like clicked as I lay on the floor, realizing that I had only been functioning at 40% my whole life. And this was what 100% felt like.
Yeah.
Death. It felt like death, but I didn't die. And that was the beautiful thing, as I was like, actually, but did you die? You know, like that came to mind, and I didn't. And, you only get stronger by doing those things, and you only get to where you want to go by pushing yourself past the risk of dying.
Yeah, so it's like it's two parts, right? It's repetitive effort, the fact that you got to keep doing that thing, and also the quantity of effort per try. That has to be the maximum that you can put out.
Yeah, you can, for example, for a gym, you go to the gym for 3 hours and burn like 300 calories, or you can go for 45 minutes and burn 800 calories.
Yeah,
that's effort.
Yeah, no, I have this kind of argument at my football every week with people that are 10 years younger than I that are tired halfway through the game. And it's just me yelling, I'm 10 years older than you. I don't even tell them to run anymore. That's all I say, because I'm thinking about the same thing. It's effort. You're here now. Yeah. You're already changed up. You're sweated. You're, halfway through the game. You're already here. Just go all the way.
Yeah.
Right? And that, I guess, will come up later in our conversation when it comes to business too. But first, can you tell people who Michelle is right now? Who are you professionally, non-professionally? How would you describe yourself? You met someone at a party. I am Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm an introvert. So I wouldn't be talking at a party.
End of conversation.
I'd be in the corner like, oh, why are you approaching me? I was trying to look unapproachable.
It's like, no, you came to the party though.
I was forced to be here. They said, you need to go out and socialize more. You need to meet people.
Yeah, they do say a lot of things.
Or like, you're a leader, you run a business, you need a network. So yes, I'm networking. I'm Michelle, and I am the founder and CEO of Real Boxing Only Gym. And I have a few years of boxing under my belt. I also have a background in media. And I turned 40 last year.
Awesome.
And I like running.
That's amazing.
That's how I sum myself up. I like running.
Tell me about Real Boxing. How would you describe it in numbers?
In numbers?
Yeah.
3. Real Boxing Only. It's 3 words in the name.
It's gonna be so fun.
It's okay. A lot of people don't get the name right. They forget the only. So 3.
Yeah,
there you go.
Got it.
In numbers, I started it in 2018. We're approaching our 4th anniversary. We doubled in size in the last year. We went from 6,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet. My team doubled to 13 team members. We grew in gym memberships by 230% in 14 months. Wow. And we lost 700,000 while we were closed during COVID. And we finally paid back everything in July 2021.
Congratulations.
There's your numbers.
Amazing. Okay, so one number you've already given me is your age, but I want to take a far trip down memory lane. Who was Michelle growing up? What was your childhood like? What were your influences? Who were you around? Family? Where were you in the world? Can you tell us a short history of Michelle?
I'll be as brief as possible. I was born in Colorado. We lived in Arizona, Nebraska, and Pennsylvania. We moved a lot, even within the States. We moved houses a lot. My dad was going back to school to get his PhD, and he had 3 kids, so he worked a lot of jobs and went to different schools. And so I got used to relocating a lot. Like I didn't make a ton of. Well, I made friends, but they were like service friends. Like when it was time to move, I'd be like, "Wait, later." It wasn't a hard thing for me.
It's like single serving friends from Fight Club. Have you seen Fight Club?
Yes, I didn't think of it that way though.
No, Tyler talks about airplane food, and it's all single serving.
Yeah,
and he talks about experiences and people in the same way. Like yes, the same way.
Yeah, I single serving friends.
Yeah.
And it was part of my personality. I'd be quick to make friends, but I was more than happy to just move on to the next thing. We were homeschooled. All three of us kids were homeschooled my whole life. As we got older, so we were always quite religious because my family is Christian. But as we got older, we got super religious. And when I say super religious, like the TV disappeared, the Christmas tree disappeared, and we had like dresses and like head coverings, and we stopped even going to normal churches. And like it was very, 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 very conservative. They call it plain brethren, actually, in the States. There's a name for it, plain brethren. Yeah.
Plain brethren.
Yeah, it's one step above Mennonite and Amish. Yeah. We have electricity. So
I need to look this up. Or should I?
Go for it. I'm sorry. That's all I'm going to say.
Google images. Hey, is that you, Michelle?
Making some buttermilk. I always said I had good work ethic.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, you teach good work ethic. I learned to sew. I learned to cook. I learned to clean the house.
Very independent.
I wouldn't say independent, no.
No?
No. You were taught that the husband was the head of the household, so your dad was the head of the household, and we were being made to get married and have families. That's kind of what they teach you, those skills for that.
Okay.
Your purpose was to be a wife.
Yeah.
So
very familiar with that.
it's not uncommon in many cultures and religions. So we're on the kind of different side when it comes to the States and how Christianity is portrayed. So, yeah. But it does happen. It is common, especially in Pennsylvania. That's where the Amish live.
Really?
Yes. Okay. We left the States in 1994, 95. It's a bit blurry on what year we actually did that. We moved to Muscat, Oman. And it worked really well for us because Muscat's quite conservative, and Islam itself in Muscat is conservative, so we fit in well. Like Omanis were like, who are you people? You can't be Americans. Your women wear dresses and your girls are so well behaved, and good family values. And we really liked Muscat. Even as kids, I was homeschooled, so I was outside and met Omanis. I learned to read, write, and speak Arabic. Really just kind of dove right into the culture. But when I became 17, we weren't able to go to university in Muscat. And my dad really wanted that for us. He has a PhD, so university was important to him. And they didn't allow foreigners into Sultan Qaboos University. So we moved to Sharjah, to American University of Sharjah. And that's where my dad taught. And they allowed any nationality into that university. So we moved there in 2000. I believe, because yes, I graduated in 1999. And I was quite an unfocused, is the word I'll use, 18-year-old. I had no declared major. I thought I would be a doctor because my dad obviously was quite an academic, and I wanted to be like my dad. So I thought I'd go for like the biggest possible degree you could get, be a doctor. After one semester of failing pretty much all of those really hard classes, I was like, yep, not for me. I was like, chemistry, bore. So I kind of bounced around, did some design stuff, and I just really wasn't finding my way. And I was out smoking on the steps all the time instead of actually in school. I was getting into trouble. I was going to Dubai and going out all the time, missing curfew in Sharjah, like you name it, I was on a roll. Yeah. And so finally my dad was like, you either follow the house rules or you leave. And I was like, well, I'll leave. I'm a middle child. I'll leave. I don't need you people. And so he gave me one-way ticket back to Nebraska. I didn't really know Nebraska was exactly where he was sending me. I probably wouldn't have chosen that destination. So I was there for a couple of years. I did some odd jobs, but I had to learn to live by myself, which is quite an awakening. I had to get a job, I had to get a car, and Nebraska doesn't have big public transport, so you can't just take the tube somewhere. Right. Yeah. And I just didn't relate to anyone, and I worked a bunch of jobs, and I finally decided I was going to go back to school. So then I had to pay for my school as well, because when I was in AUS, it was all covered under his job, right? All his kids went to university for free. Now I had to get a student loan, I had to live on my own, work full time. Really important time of my life, I will say.
That's where the independence is starting to kick in.
Yeah, this is where I kind of found more about myself as work ethic, that I would never probably live in the States again. Like I learned that as well. Like I hated it when I was back there. Like I had no friends because I couldn't relate to them. I was what you call as a third culture kid. Like I just couldn't relate to our own people anymore. And that's when I got focused. I was like, right, I'm going to go to school. So I went to school at night for 4 hours every night, and I worked 60 hours a week just to be able to live and pay for books and, you know, a car. And I graduated within, I think it was a year and a half, and I graduated with honors.
Wow.
So, and I got a business degree with a marketing minor, and my dad has a PhD in business, so I made him proud anyway. And before I even had the graduation ceremony, I sold my car and booked my ticket back to Dubai. Like, I was like, that's where I'm going. I don't care. I am leaving this place.
Goal accomplished. I'm out.
And I showed up in Dubai, no job, nothing. I lived with my friend from university. And yeah, so that's my story. I went to marketing from there. I got my first job in Media City and went from there. And here we are.
Well, that explains quite a bit. I don't know you that well. We met a year and a half ago. And there's always things you can infer about the other person. So I did figure the third culture kid part, but now I have the full context there because Alina and I are third culture kids. We just don't fit in anywhere, wherever we go. Or people, when they ask you what home is.
I hate that question. Where are you from? I don't know. That's what I want to say, but however, it's not a socially accepted response. They'll look at you like, what do you mean you don't know? Yeah. Or then I say Dubai and they're like, not possible.
Yeah. Or you start saying all these hyphenated things, you know, or just make it a nice romantic novel about, you know, what home is. But let's talk about from that jump. You said you got your first job in Media City. What I'm more interested in, at some point you broke away from the employment world. And as I understand, Real Boxing isn't your first venture, your first business venture.
No, it's my second.
And the first one was?
The Media Network.
Tell me about, before we tell me about the Media Network, what were you thinking? That's a good question. What were you thinking?
How much time do you have?
Yeah, what were your considerations? What was your push? What was your pull? What was the opportunity? Was it? What were the things that were running through your mind as you were preparing to move out of the employee world?
I would like to give myself more credit and that I actually planned for these things, but no, there was a time in my life where I just winged a lot of things. And I think that's one of the things I like most about my personality is that if I decide I'm going to do something, I do it. And I don't always have a clear plan. I do now more that I'm responsible for more people now in a business and money and stuff like that. I have to. But when I was younger, I didn't. And I feel like that's kind of the entrepreneur string in my DNA. It's there somewhere. I don't know where it came from, but that attitude was kind of how I lived my life for years. I used to tell the story of how when the Palm Jumeirah opened, I had to live on the Palm. All my friends lived in shoreline apartments, and I had no job. And I found this is during high inflation time, right? So prices were ridiculous. And I found a room to rent for 7,000 dirhams a month. And it was like a room to rent for 7,000 dirhams a month, but I had to have that room and it was the only one left. Right. And so I went in and the people that owned the apartment were really nice and stuff. And they're like, so what do you do for work? And I was like, oh, I'm freelance, events marketing. And he was like, oh, great. And he's like, all right, well, you got it. And then I had to go and find a job after that so I could pay for the apartment I had to move into. And
that's motivation.
And it was. And I was like, I just have to find a job to pay for this. And I figured it out along the way. And I did that a lot. I did that when I went into PR. My friend, I met her at a party. I wasn't really working. I was doing some copywriting and stuff. And she was like, oh, what are you doing? I didn't know her that well either. And I was like, oh, nothing much, doing some copywriting, some freelance stuff. And she's like, oh, I'm starting a PR company. Do you want to come work for me? And I'm like, okay. And these are the type of decisions that I made. But it was really good decisions. That opportunity in itself, she became my business partner for the Media Network. We got on well. I watched her start her PR company. I watched her sit on her sofa and do everything herself. And then she taught me everything, how to write good emails, how to write a press release. Like all these things I learned from her. And now I spent years in PR and I spent years in media. And it's because of that one decision to be like, yeah, I'd love to come and work for you. And I helped her start her PR. I was her first employee and we worked really, really well together for a year. And then I didn't say left, I was back and forth. I was dating someone that lived outside of the country. And so I wasn't working for her full time anymore. But then after a couple of years, I was kind of like, I wouldn't mind starting a business. I think I can now. I watched her do it and I learned like from other people in my life who were running businesses. And I thought, you know what, I've learned quite a bit over the years. I can do this. And I also had a sense of how hard it would be. And that I think is a really important thing when you go to do it, is that you don't think it's easy. So I had this idea of, I went through hell with all these other people and we came out on top. I think I can do it myself too. So I asked her, I was like, do you want to start a business together? And I had no idea what we were going to do either. I was like, do you want to start a business together?
So a business, like
that's what I told her. And I was like,
thing.
yeah. And she's like, yeah, because she was full of ideas. She loved to be an entrepreneur and she loved to like start things. And she's like, yeah, I have this idea we can do, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right. And that's how I went into business for my first business, the Media Network, with her.
Okay, so the Media Network, you had watched your friend start her own business. You understood the risks. You understood the amount of work that it took. And you are now coming up with a vague idea for a business. What was your process for actually explaining to yourself and to your partner what the business is going to be?
So my thought process at that point was, because I was going back and forth a lot and I was living in his world because it was his country, his family business. I think I wanted something of my own. And I think that was really kind of my thought process. I wanted to build something that was mine because I was so desperate to get some type of, what would you call it? Self back, like some self. Who was I? Like I wanted to define myself because I was losing myself by living someone else's life. And I think this was one way that I was like, if I can do this, I'll find my purpose. I'll find my way. And that was really, I think, my thought process at that point.
Were you running towards something or were you running away from something at that point? So working with a partner, yes, you feel a little bit less independence, I guess, because you got to run your thoughts by someone and they have to have the buy-in and you have to use persuasion or you have to just go with your gut feelings. Is it something that you were avoiding, that you didn't want to persuade someone of your ideas and just get actioning fast? Or was it just that everything was fine and then you want to do things on your own and you're running towards that versus away from it?
I think I didn't see it as inhibiting to have a business partner. I found it as empowering because she was someone I respected, someone that I felt could only make me better. And that for my first business, I felt it was wise to do something with someone else and not to do it alone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how was the reaction from your friends and family about you kind of going out on your own? Was it mixed feelings? Was it joy? Was it fear?
I think most people had no idea what I was doing. Like the industry itself is so specific that if you're not in media at all, you wouldn't have any clue of what we were doing and what we were building. Even the media, when we launched it, it was a whole year of education of the industry of how to use what we had actually built for them. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine my mother had no idea what I was doing. Yeah. And she just thought, oh, there Michelle is again doing her own thing. Who knows what will happen next?
You've set a good precedent in your past, right?
It was not unexpected by people, I think. Yeah. I think if I were to have success, that would be unexpected by people. Yes.
Right. I bring these questions up because there's a lot of people in our lives and networks and in Dubai and in the world that think a lot about and talk a lot about getting into business on their own and or with a partner or whatever it is. And what I'm trying to help them see that most of the people that have come on this show, it's been accidental or it's been intentional, but not, with a 5-year business plan.
Yeah, I thought they stumbled into your podcast studio accidentally.
Pretty much.
Can I join your podcast?
That's exactly it. They were just walking down the hall and I said, hey, you.
You know anything about business? Well, I like that strategy.
It's how Alina got started too. It was purely accidental.
What you found her in the hallway?
I did. Well, she found herself in a hallway. And
how did I get here?
A funny story about that. I keep getting mistaken for an Uber driver in Toronto. Because you use your regular cars in Toronto to drive an Uber. And then, I had a Honda Civic and I'd be standing on the street waiting for her to come in, and at least 2 people per sitting would just sit in the back seat like, okay, we're ready. I'm like, not your Uber driver.
Yeah, but, sorry, I'm off duty.
Sorry, my app is not working. It's not connecting to the network.
No, better yet, you should have called Alina and be like, hey, I'm just dropping some people off. I'll be back. I'm just making a couple bucks.
Hey, I figured out lunch today.
Entrepreneurship.
Imagine that.
She'd be like, that hustler.
So it was kind of like that for Alina, where she was just doing freelance work, and then hey, you want to do this for me, or you want to do XYZ for me? And she's like, okay, sure. So she was a better Uber driver. She took on those customers to a point where they just ended up being very profitable, and to a point where there was too much for her to handle or have on her plate. And before we knew it, we registered an LLC. And there was no business plan. It was literally maybe a conversation on the couch. Hey, you want to do this together?
Go in Canva in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a binding contract to me. You know, I feel like.
Yeah. It's very different than what they teach you in business school, right?
Yeah, I always feel like I didn't really need my university education. Like, it didn't do anything for me. When it comes to what I'm doing now. In fact, I probably could have been without that and the 10-year student loan that I had to pay back for that. Yeah, that's upsetting.
Didn't they just pardon it?
No. In the States, they're very different about education. Yeah, you pay for that. Yeah. And then you continue to pay for that. And you learn nothing.
Well, you do learn time management, which, I didn't need to go to school for 4 years to learn time management.
Yeah, agree. And I think when I went, because I had to do it myself, I learned a lot in that time, but it wasn't from the books itself. Yeah. I learned a lot about like working all those long hours, doing school at night, studying until 2 a.m, getting up at 4:45 to be to work by 5:30. Like, that was what I learned. Yeah. I didn't learn per se what I was learning, you know, like what I was reading at 2 a.m. in and out, just passing exams and stuff. But it was that time of my life that I learned quite a bit. And business plan, I'm of 2 minds with the business plan.
Tell me.
I'm like you. I didn't start with a business plan on really either of the businesses. I think that Jill, my business partner for the Media Network, and I had plans. Like, we would say, here's what we're going to sell it for. Here's who's going to buy it, and here's what we're going to build. But like, we got an office in the first year, and I was really against that because she had more money than I did. I had money, but the investment I was putting in, like, mine would run out. Like, I knew that, and it was like I only had a certain amount, and obviously offices here in the UAE are expensive, especially in DMCC, and I think that expense in itself was high for us, and I felt it probably was something that if you'd actually done a business plan, because we didn't sell anything for 1.5 years. Like, we made no money.
Zero.
Yeah, none. We lost money, a lot of money. And that's because what we made was so new to the market, we didn't actually forecast the response, which was zero response, and it was a big education project. So we then had to change our entire plan of how we would run the business, because we had to then actually show people how to use it and like why they wanted us. We had to build our reputation, and that was a learning process in itself. And I think what I learned on those first 2 years prepared me for what then when I went and opened the gym. And yeah, it was a really big lesson to learn on like finance, on expenses, on working with customers, cold calling.
I love cold calling.
Ooh.
Said nobody ever.
I know. And anyone as an entrepreneur that says they are not a salesperson, you have to be. You have to believe in what you built, and you have to tell people about it and why it's great. And that is the core of your business.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, then step aside.
Yeah.
Because you can't hire someone else early at the beginning, and you can't hire someone to believe in what you believe in, what you built. That's something that comes after time. But sales and that skill was something that it took a bit to get to. And actually, you'll find that boxing had a huge impact on that for me.
Let's segue then. That's a great setup.
Right?
How did you go from selling or educating the market about the media services they may or may not need and then convincing them to pay you for said services? From that, I don't think boxing is a close cousin of media. How did you make that transition? What happened in between?
Because boxing changes you. Boxing gives you something that I didn't have. Now, I'll rewind a little bit for you. Mm-hmm. When Jill and I started the Media Network, we were 50-50 partners. No one knew who I was. Like, no one. Everyone would be like, oh, Jill Downey owns the Media Network. And I'd be like, hi, hello, I'm right here. I'd go to events, I'd hide. I wouldn't speak to anyone. I wouldn't do any real interviews or anything. Like, no one knew who I was because I lacked self-confidence. And I wasn't confident as a business owner either. I was worried about being in this media industry where all these people had so much background in media. And here I was, and I was like, I have some background in media, but I don't feel like I'm a veteran of media, right? That's partly why Jill was a great business partner, because she was. She was a journalist, ex-journalist from London, a journalist in Dubai, started her own PR company in Dubai. Like, she was a veteran. Like, everyone knew her. And here I was, a nobody, and I continued to be that person. And I continued to be that person for a couple of years. And so any sales meeting that we would have, she would lead it all. And I'd be like, just be like, that's great, taking notes. Yeah. And anyone asks a question, I'd be like, don't look at me, avoid eye contact. I go to make a phone call and be like, oh my God, please don't answer. That was me. Okay. And at some point I kind of got tired of that person. And that goes back to that whole thing of where I wanted to build something of my own because I needed to find myself because I had lost that person. And it kind of came to the point in 2016 when I needed to find that person and I was sick of being who I was. And someone suggested boxing. They were like, it's really good for you. They were like, you feel great afterwards. Physically, you get nice and fit. Because I was putting on a little bit of weight. Starting a business is quite time consuming. And yeah, we didn't sleep. We were ordering food. We weren't leaving. It was. So I was first time in my life I'm putting on weight, and I was like, what is this? And I think I just had a little bit of pent up rage as well. I think rage is good. It drives me every day. I love rage, but pent up rage is not great. Mm-hmm. And so I took my first boxing class, and here we are. What happened from that was by the third boxing class, I had that huge epiphany, which we opened with, which is everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die. Mm-hmm. And it was then on just the third boxing class in the first week that I started boxing that I am laying on the floor, having never run even like a minute in my life, to being on a treadmill and running uphill for 15 minutes, and I didn't die. I thought I was dying. Like, there were moments when I was like, I can't, and I'm like tears running down my eyes, and he's like, stay on, and I'm like, I'm not again. Like, horrible experience.
I don't know what's hurting more, my ear or my feet.
My heart. Like, so much emotion comes into the fact when you're doing something that physically hard and like burning in your lungs, and you think, I'm having a heart attack. I think I'm bleeding. And I just want to point out something. Do you know when you're burning in your lungs and you feel like you taste blood? It is actually blood.
I've never been there, but...
Okay, then you haven't put in effort. It is actually blood.
I feel seen.
Like... I hear you. I see you. I've exposed you. It is actually like blood coming out.
What?
Yeah, of your, I don't know the actual science behind it. I did read about this though, that they say when you're running and you feel burning, it is because there is a bit of blood.
I'm guessing that's a bad thing. I'm not sure.
It's not a bad thing. It's just a transition into becoming fitter. Like your body is not used to it, and so it's performing differently. I don't want to go into too much medical because I don't actually know the exact thing about it.
We'll leave some links in the show notes.
But people often say when they're running, they feel like, there's like that, I feel taste blood, or it's like really burning, or it's like stuck in your throat and stuff. Like you think you're dying. You're not really dying, but your body is definitely working at max capacity for where it's at. And that moment when I did that and I lay on the floor thinking, that was just a warm up. I'm like, what are we going to do for the next 40 minutes? I was like, oh my God. No one ever said, you can do more, Michelle. You could be better. You could literally go to the moon. You are unstoppable. You are limitless. No, I was kind of just like, yeah, like no one had any expectations for me. No one said you were going to be great. You could change the world. You could be the most, like someone that I didn't even imagine I was becoming in that moment. In those 5 minutes when I lie on the ground, I had become someone completely different than who had walked in the gym 15 minutes before. And that transition in itself blew my mind.
So that was your Kensho, that was your awakening.
Yeah, that was it. That was that moment. And I will never forget that moment. And that's when I was like, I'm never going to stop boxing. And I just like, I fell in love with boxing and I became a completely different person. I was so self-confident. I was so empowered. And it wasn't because I was hitting things. It's because I was changing. I was changing myself. I was challenging myself. I was becoming someone that I didn't even know I could become. And that in itself is where the confidence comes from. And then just the boxing itself gives you like mental sharpness, the high circulation, like your body performs, which means your mind performs better. So everything changed. I just became like someone completely different. And so I'd be setting up meetings. I was making money in the media network and I was doing it all. I was making up all the events. I was going to sales meetings at least 5-7 times a day to like heads of media agencies and stuff. And I don't know who I was, but I knew that I was like, this was changing me and I wanted it to always be that way. And so I kept going back for boxing and I was boxing nonstop and I started fighting. I didn't even think I was ever going to fight when I first started. And then he was like, you want to fight? And I'm like, okay, like, why not? And that in itself is massively empowering. Nothing is more tiring than fighting your first fight, especially because your body's not used to it. So you've never felt that tired in your life until you're in the end of the first 2-minute round. And you're standing there like, I can't go on. I can't, I'm so tired. And your coach is like, yeah, you're getting back in. You still have 2 more rounds. And you're like, no, I can't breathe. I can't, like, you can't see, like, everything. Like, you're blacking out. I mean, like, you're that tired. And it's just, it's anaerobic. So there's no, like, oxygen in your muscle. Like, everything about boxing is the highest, like, the most intense sport. And your first boxing match is that way. It's just, you don't know what's happening. You're like, I'm not going to be able to finish this. And then you do. And that in itself is everything. Because you're like, when I thought I was dying, when I thought my legs couldn't work and someone was punching me, someone was attacking me. This woman wanted to kill me. Like, she wanted to kill me. And I couldn't figure out why. I thought we were just like going to do some boxing, And like, no, she came at me like hands swinging and she just wanted to kill me. And I won. And right there was an entire game changer. I was just like, you cannot touch this. Like, I was like, I am so unstoppable right now.
Did you find that you've listed a couple of ancillary benefits to boxing? Did you find that you became more competitive? Were you competitive before? Did that change?
I wasn't competitive before, but I think competitiveness is people who are not complacent anymore. I think people who say, I'm just not competitive are just actually not confident, because people who don't want to compete is because they don't want to lose and they're too afraid to take that risk. So I don't think competitiveness has anything to do with being a competitive person. I think it has to do everything with your own self-confidence, and you're willing to put yourself out in front of others to see for you to lose or win. And that's when you become competitive, is when you don't actually care about the risk.
I haven't heard it in that way before, or that particular thinking model about it. Just coming from a background of introversion myself, the guy who's making 40 cold calls a day as an introvert.
And doing a podcast.
Oh, great podcast. Yeah.
You're an introvert. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Totally an introvert.
Me too. And people would say the same thing. You're not an introvert. I'm an introvert.
Yeah. I can turn it on, when I want.
When you have to.
When
you
I have to.
Exactly.
But then I'll go home and recover. And no one
talk
talks.
to anyone for 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
No
And
more WhatsApps.
no, I know what you're feeling with boxing, because I had that with soccer and or football, as you may call it in different parts of the world. But Alina knows this, my wife and business partner. Was not very competitive, so I'd play games for fun. Who does that, right? Yeah, look, I'm getting the
The
loser
complacient
sign.
do that.
It probably is true. Well, I sucked because I was complacent. And I didn't ever aim to win, whether it be board games or betting or anything like that. I'd just be the guy who's smiling through the whole thing. And something happened. She's seen this transition, especially in the last few years. I've been playing more and more, and I go 3 or 4 times a week. And I'm the guy yelling at the top of my lungs when my team is down, just to push everyone, because I don't want to fucking lose anymore.
Yes.
I just don't. I want to be better than the last game. I don't want to repeat my mistakes. I don't want to see other people repeating mistakes. And it's starting to bleed into other parts of my life, whether it's business,
Yes.
back to board games, or anything else. Like, I now prepare like I never used to prepare before. I am more organized because of it, because I'm preparing to win.
Preparing to win. Exactly.
Right? But
People don't spend enough time preparing. What's that saying that says, if I had, what is it, like 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 6 sharpening the axe? Something like that, yeah.
Exactly.
And that's preparing to win.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And before, I wouldn't give a thought.
No,
Like,
because
I don't
you
know
didn't
about
care.
you, going into a sales meeting, you'd kind of just go in.
You'd always go in that they weren't going to give it to you anyway.
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of like, oh, that's a no. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I'll just email you then. Okay.
Because you had that good take on competitiveness, I want to hear your take on this too. Imposter syndrome, right? Like the things you were mentioning about you being, or your partner being way more established. What part of that would you call imposter syndrome, or what's your take on imposter syndrome? Because I have a different take on it. I feel like sometimes people that get imposter syndrome, that's a good sign that they should stop doing what they're doing, because they're probably not very good at it and they're blaming their imposter syndrome on it.
Listen to your body. That's the most common advice. Listen to your body. Get out.
My body says no.
You don't belong here.
No.
But it's just imposter syndrome.
What do you think about imposter syndrome?
The same way I feel about competitiveness. With self-confidence, it goes away. It is just a confidence thing, I believe, and that no matter how confident you are, if you're not qualified, then it won't go away. If you are confident in yourself, exactly your authentic self, your purpose, what you're doing there, you don't care that you make mistakes anyway. It's when you feel like you're an imposter, you never want to make a mistake because people might judge you or you don't belong there, and they all know that I don't belong here. But I'm the opposite of imposter syndrome. I belong in the boxing world, even though I'm a woman and I come from media and I'm not like a professional boxer or even a certified fitness trainer, but I belong at that table, and I don't even care if people let me sit at it. I'll just build my own. And that's exactly what I say about the gym, is that, they didn't let me join the boys club, so I just made my own club.
Great
and it's called
segue.
Real Boxing Only.
That's a great segue. How are you reading my mind? Because that's what I want to talk about next. So talk about building your own table. Like where, how, when, again, the same opportunity, risk analysis, gut feelings, just went with it. What was that process of going from 0 to 1 for Real Boxing Only?
Is that from the book?
I just like the phrase.
I'm reading that book.
It's a great book. It's a very good book. Peter Thiel?
it's a very eye-opening book. I feel as though I might have chosen the wrong industry.
Yeah, it makes you think about all the restaurants in Dubai.
It makes me think about, I wish I had started Google. Am I wasting my talent on a business that will never be a monopoly?
I know. I'm the only advertiser in Dubai. A market of one.
Ooh. Yeah, it is kind of a deflating book, but I'm trying to definitely learn from it without feeling bad for the very expensive decision.
Imposter syndrome.
The very expensive table I built. Yeah. I used high quality products to build this 2.1 million dirham table.
Wow.
And
that going from the media company, which is low capital, just a laptop, maybe some printouts from Desco.
Not even printouts. Like we did everything digital. It was all online media, and then I went to a brick and mortar fitness service based person in-house business, that thought process was, I was in my media company, one that I was now super confident in, and I was working, and things were just really doing well. Like we were flying, and it was really kind of a moment to be proud. But very typical of me, I didn't take a minute to be proud. I thought, I'm 36. I don't want to do media for the rest of my life. I was like, I don't particularly like media people. And I am saying this on a podcast, and I mean that. I am only who I am, and I don't BS. I don't like to pretend that I like something that I don't. I don't like to small talk. I don't particularly like going out and drinking and networking and media events and all those like fluffy things that happen in media. And I was just doing it because I had to. And I thought, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to be in the gym. And that was like my thought process. I want to be in the gym. And I'm in my office, I'm trying to work, and I want to be in the gym. And I thought, this is not going to leave. I don't think this feeling is going to leave me. And I'm not going to be able to grow the business because I'm not focused, 24/7 on this business becoming super awesome. I'm focused like 9 hours a day. So I was like, I went to Jill and I said, I think this year, this is like early 2017, no, summer, yeah, August. I think I'm going to go open a gym or do something fitness related. So I'll probably be stepping back in October. And she was like, okay, whatever works for you. I think she saw it coming probably before I saw it coming. Because she was so great about it. And she was just like, I think you should do that. And I was like, okay. Oh, that was easy, and then, that was the easy part, because then I actually had to find the money to open a gym, which is a lot of money. And I'm not exactly some world famous boxer, that someone's like happy to slap some money on you, and I'm a woman as well, and I'm not extremely approachable, as I've been told many times. So I don't have that kind of likable quality that you see now.
What a change. I'm just messing with you.
So that was probably then my next big accomplishment in my life. And it was the meeting where I made my big pitch to get the investment. Because from someone that I said to you clearly is an introvert, who wasn't very self-confident, who didn't like to sell things, I then had to become the complete person that I didn't believe I was. But it's because I knew this thing that I was going for was all I wanted. And it was my life's purpose. And I believe that. I believe this is what I'm meant to do. And I wasn't going to give up until I got that. And within 5 minutes of that meeting that I spent weeks preparing for and sweating and never sleeping and had when I get nervous, I get sweaty palms. It's really annoying, by the way. If you've ever been to passport control,
Even when you've done nothing wrong.
I've done nothing wrong. Yeah. My palms are sweating. I'm like, there's no drugs in my bag, nothing. And they're like, there's drugs in her bag.
I'm
Like-
nodding vigorously.
Yeah, I just get so nervous at passport control for no absolute reason. Even a cop behind my car, and I'm nervous. I've never committed a crime in my life, and I'm just like,
I know.
yeah. So imagine
Like, is my
go
number plate off? Is it my tires? Like,
do I use a turning signal now?
Like,
just stay.
do they know what I did last summer? Like, what's going on?
I have no fashion sense. Will they get me for that? Like,
What a cry.
these moments. Yeah, so you can imagine how I was in that meeting, and I prepared for it. It was probably the first time that I prepared for this. And like you said, I was coming to win. And I did. Within 2 minutes of the end of that meeting, I got the call and said, right, you're in. And I was like, so I like cried. I had like tears running down my eyes. I was like, oh my God, I did it. And that, again, was, probably one of my biggest moments of my life. And it's one that I'll always hold on to. But it wasn't even probably the hardest part. Then it was like the next step when it came to actually producing a gym. The good news is that, that whole thread of I just kind of jump right in personality that I've had a lot of my life. I did that. Like, I drew exactly how the gym was going to be on a piece of paper. I found the location. I didn't know anything about like fitness equipment, but I just like went through how I'd been training, and I kind of like developed all the class programs, the class names, the layout of the gym, what equipment I was going to buy. And I was negotiating. I was such a hard ass. Like, I mean, I was edgy, so edgy. I don't think I slept for 3 months. Like, I was up at the crack of dawn and doing like lawyer paperwork at night in my living room on the floor, like at midnight. And like suppliers would be calling me and they'd be like, we're here now, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I didn't say today. And I was just like, so intense. I was very intense, but it's because the amount of pressure I was under as well. I had just accepted a large sum of money, and to create something that was so new, but nothing could stop me. I just went, and then it was done. Like
Like all the days blended into the weeks.
Yeah,
blended
and
into
I
the
look back at
months.
now, and it's kind of a black hole. Like,
Yeah.
like it all just kind of happened, and I just remember being like really intense. I was really intense. Like, anyone that met me at that point probably would have been like, "Girl, you need a nap."
Bad advice. Don't listen to them.
Yeah, I never take advice anyway.
So, real boxing only. You've set up this space, and I'm gonna jump ahead for a little bit just to come back. You're at a place where you're able to franchise the business.
Yes.
Yes, and now we're gonna go back. But before you got there, let's talk about some of the challenges you had in the business, and whatever comes to mind that served you good lessons. It could be right at the start. It could be a few years in. What are some of the stories that you can kind of share with me?
So many. I look at myself over the last 4 years, and I think I'm exhausted. And not just because of the work, I'm exhausted because I haven't stopped growing as a person. I think that's the one thing is they don't actually teach you in school, is that when you decide to open a business, good luck, because you need to be able to grow and change. And it's very painful to kind of become that person. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I face, and it's ongoing all the time, is how to be the best leader. Like, who am I as a leader? And I'm not always a great leader. I always try to be a great leader. I think that's probably one of the hardest things is not losing sight of who I actually am, and being that person every single day is what makes me a great leader. When I try to be who I think they want me to be, or who someone else tells me I should be or I shouldn't be, then I go into that phase again where I don't know who I am, and then I kind of lose my way, and then I feel as though I'm not a good leader. And I think that's probably going to be a lesson that will continue for a while, I think, because it's easy to be influenced by what people, when they criticize you. I heard something really, really good that I've always kind of held on to. Gary Vee says it. He says, never let criticism go to your heart and praise go to your head. And I thought that was a really appropriate thing, because when we started to do well in the gym, I felt as though I kind of let it go to my head a bit. So the first few months were very tough when I opened the gym. I didn't, like I said, put as much thought process into it as I should have. And the thought process being that I didn't know how to get customers, which is kind of important.
Going back to being the salesperson.
But how do you sell a gym that just opened? So there's no like established, like why would people give you money for something that has no kind of established reputation? It's also in a warehouse in El Cruz, so there's no footfall. There's nothing around you that people are coming near you for. And my entrance isn't even on the street, it's in the alley. And yeah, those are a lot of things that when I decided to open the gym were kind of minor until I actually had to open the doors and realize that this is so awful. There's no one going to be here. When people do come, they're going to be like, but you have no clients. And that's exactly what it was. Like, people would come to classes and there'd like be no one in class. Like, they'd be like, oh, I'm here for the boxing class. And then there's like just the coach sitting there saying, hey, I'm so excited to see you. You know, like, you know,
I haven't seen people in weeks.
Nothing makes you feel more like a loser, you know, until you build this great gym and there's like no one in it. And that feeling has never left me. And I used to get what I call empty gym syndrome. And it would be a really nervous feeling. And I'd be sitting in my office upstairs and I'd look in the CCTV and I'd see that there's no one in the gym. And I just, like, it would eat at me, and I would obsess about it, and I would be nervous and anxious. And that actually drove me. Those feelings drove me. And the people that said that I wouldn't be able to do it, or the ones that, it's not a very nice industry. I received kind of like blackmail and threats and stuff upon opening for the first year. So that in itself was really difficult.
Really?
Yeah. I don't want to go into it too much because I actually had to go to the police at some point. But those moments, although when it happened, were so overwhelming. Like, I remember being afraid for the first time in my life in Dubai. I was actually afraid. And they defined me, though. Like, I was like, no, someone will not scare me out of doing this. And I get to thank them now, because it really drove me. And it drove me to do whatever it took to become successful. And by August 2018, only 6 months, I had to do the math there, 6 months after opening, we actually had to kind of rearrange the furniture because we had so many clients, we didn't have enough floor space. And that was a moment where I was like, look at me now.
Vindication.
How do you like me now? You know, like bringing out the country tunes, you know. But that's exactly, don't let praise go to your head, because then everyone's like, I was quite connected to customers, and I was very connected to the staff as well. I was very hands-on because I am, one, kind of a control freak, and two, because I was so desperate to win at this point that I was also quite well liked, you know, so people were always saying great things about me, and I was getting some good press, you know, and I felt as though I kind of got full of myself, like, oh, I did it. So I went on holiday in November 2018, and we had our worst sales for the following 2 months of the year. And I think that lesson itself taught me, all right, let's not get ahead of yourself now. Like, you need to get things kind of in order before you just run off and act like you create a successful business. So that was kind of an eye-opener as well. And then that led me into 2019, where I was like, okay, so we had a tough kind of end to the year, and my investment ran out in April 2018. So I was struggling through summer at that point, because now we had to rely solely on just making money, and we weren't exactly breaking even. So I really had to kind of push on how we were going to get the amount of money I needed to pay for all this stuff now for the rest of the year. And that's when I really kind of started to look at what I was selling. what am I selling? What is my product? Is it boxing? And I think moments like that help you redefine who you are as a business. And I did. I kind of spent time almost writing the business plan I probably should have written, but I don't think it would have been as good as business plan if I had written at the beginning. Because then I started to write, like, what do we do here? You know, who are we? What do we sell? What is our product? What is our purpose? And those things really helped me fine tune what I was then going to do instead of trying to do everything. And then it helped me fine tune of how I was going to do it. How do we speak to customers? How do we teach? So if I knew what I was selling, then I knew how I was going to sell it. And then it was just a case of training and team building on those, getting everyone on board of what we were doing and streamlining. So instead of offering so many products, I then changed to what we offered. And the thing that I think when you realize so many people are relying on you and kind of know who you are, it also puts pressure to create something that works but is makes sense. So when I went and changed kind of our memberships, I spent probably 6 months doing the math of what that impact of changing those memberships would have on the current paying customers. Because the last thing I want was to change something and then someone come and question me on my decision and say, but now I'm paying more money. Now, math's not my strong suit, so that did take me probably 6 months because math's not my strong suit. But I was also really nervous about doing it because I wanted to do it right. The other aspect of wanting to win is that you do kind of feel nervous about things, and I think nerves are good. In the same way as nerves help you fight well in a boxing bout, it also helps you in business because it means it matters. You care. So I streamlined things, and 2019, we kind of found our way in what we were doing. Still not making tons of money, but it's only second year of a brick and mortar business, so it wasn't like I was in a really bad position. But
can I interject about the redoing of the business plan? I find that it makes sense to me now, and it wasn't making sense to me a few years ago, that when you're starting a business, it's actually kind of stupid to make a business plan because there's so many variables that are in the unknown category. So it's things that you don't know that you don't even know about.
Yeah.
Versus a couple of years in, you've seen the business in action, you've seen the customers, you've seen the market, and now your bucket of known things has increased. So when you start making plans or changes to the plan based on those knowns, it actually makes sense to sit down and do the math. Even if it takes you 6 months
just
to
the
do
price
it.
changes.
Oh God, it's like the whole 6 months starts hey, what are you doing, Michelle? Just the numbers. Month 4, what are you doing? Just the numbers. How long have you been doing them for? 4 numbers.
Don't interrupt me. Counting.
So, sorry, I interjected you, but 2019, well, what did that look like for you guys?
2019, we kind of, it was good. I liked 2019. I liked who I was in that year. I felt I was really connected with my customers. I was attending our very own classes. I had good coaches. We had a good community in the gym. I really liked 2019. I would say now, as I look to where we are now, we could do more for sales in 2019, but what I did for the brand in 2019, what I did for the customers was really important. And I think the one thing I learned as well is don't be so egotistical that you can't listen to your customer. I think entrepreneurs really struggle with that. And I can say that from a personal experience because when a customer says something to someone that has built a business from their blood, sweat, and tears, it's really offensive. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard not to be defensive. And I think the more confident you are in yourself and the brand, you can actually listen to client feedback and actually hear what they're saying, not just hear it as criticism. So I listen to everything the customers say, and I don't ever make promises I can't keep. And I don't ever think that our way is right or their way is right, but I listen to their message. What is it that the customer's asking? What is it that they're actually saying? What is it that they want? Because if I'm not selling what they want, what am I selling for? What am I doing a business for if my customers are not buying and they're not happy with what they're buying? Then I have no purpose to be in a business. I'm just selling to myself because I think that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And so that was a really big kind of lesson for 2019. And I've only grown on that. I will say that, you know, sometimes customers can be annoying, and they say things that you're kind of like, well, that's like, I've heard that 100 times. But then who's the dumb person? If you've heard something 100 times from a customer and someone's still saying it, that would be me. Because if you're not changing and you're not fixing the problem, then you're the idiot, not the customer who keeps saying, hi, can you just like turn the AC on? You know, can it not be so hot upstairs? Then yeah, it is me. Like I'm the moron because you're coming here to train and I'm still saying, but you want to get a sweat? Like they're paying to train here. If I'm not getting the message, then I should just go sit in my office and let the company go under because I'm not able to actually hear what the customer is saying. And I teach that a lot to my team members as well, which is stop thinking that you know best. Stop demonizing clients and being like, oh, they're always saying this, blah, blah, blah. No, we are nothing without them. We are literally nothing without them. So everything you do should be from their perspective. And that's something that the way I built the gym is I built it from how I would want a gym to be as a customer. And I think if I keep that in mind all the time, then I'm winning. So 2019 was aces. 2020 was not aces. I think we all know why.
No, nothing happened. We were all very quiet. It was an introvert's year.
It was a great time on the sofa.
Right?
I was like, I have to come back out now? Like when they were like, right, gym's opening. Great. Oh, I have to leave my house again.
Yeah. You remember how well I took the lockdowns? Everyone's complaining. I'm like, this is great.
I know.
I don't have to turn you down because of a random excuse.
We can't leave the house.
There's the virus. You can't come.
That's a shame, isn't it?
Don't call me.
No, I can't do Zoom. You're like Netflixing. Nope. No, I can't do Zoom.
Sorry, can't. No, but what you're saying about your customers and listening to your customers, the way I look at it is like your customers or your clients' reactions are a mirror of your work. And they don't always have to be things that you like to hear. But as you said, like, I totally agree with you. If you're hearing it too many times, start looking at yourself. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you still have to be true to yourself. In the sense, I'll give you an example. When we're pitching business, we don't do decks. That's just our thing. We will send you a recap email. We don't do decks. I don't think we gave you guys a deck either.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
No, we don't do decks. And there's
no deck for me?
No.
Who are these people?
There's a certain way we'd like to communicate with our customers, and it is mostly us being ourselves. We don't put up a show or a dog and pony show when we're pitching our business, whether it comes to making a deck or anything that's ancillary to it. And we've been told multiple times to start doing that. And I said, okay, I will start pretending to be someone else just to win business. And 6 months later, they will figure out who I really am. Then what do? Do I, again, like put on some more butter on the bread and pretend everything is fine? And when they notice too much butter, add some jam. I can't. Mm-hmm. You have to be true to, and it's not just business. I guess it's personal life too, when people are criticizing you for who you are, but you're calmly smiling like, yeah, it's not criticism. That's just me. And there's that fine line between, well, sometimes you have to listen to that and change, and sometimes just be comfortable in your skin, because you need to uphold your most genuine self, because everything that follows, your service, your products, your business, how you charge, will follow through from that. And all the conversations that you're going to have that are tough conversations. So when customers want to leave the gym, or if they want to cancel their membership, you're much likely to have an open conversation based on values that you have, I'm guessing, than pretending to be someone at the start when you're trying to close them into customers, and then a different person when you're trying to win them back.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really an important point about sales, is that if you are not being honest with customers, so when I talk about our sales strategy is pretty simple. I sell them what they're asking for, and I don't mean like I give them things that aren't on the menu. That's one thing that I think when it comes to customer complaining, I don't change per se my menu. Like you don't go to a vegan restaurant and say, "Where's the steak?"
Yeah.
Like
I
sorry.
I do ask.
That's because you're offensive. But that's you. Don't change your core values. Anyway, you know what I mean? Like, then you're kind of like, I'm sorry, we only sell vegan food here. And you're like, well, I want steak. And then I would say, well, go to Gym Nation. That's what I would say. And that's the truth. If you don't want to learn boxing and you don't like that I have 2 types of memberships, then I don't have anything to sell you. And that doesn't mean that I'm not taking client feedback. What I mean is when a client has signed up and they're saying, oh, the music's not great, the music's too loud, the coach is underqualified, the working hours are not right for me, the class schedule is not good, or I couldn't do this, or I get injured, or I'm not being, these type of things I listen to because that's what improves our quality of the service that we offer, not changing the actual service of that we offer. And
that's a good distinction.
Yeah, when I say our sales is based on what they need, it's a case of I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm asking, why are you here? So we're not a grocery store that you maybe came in for bread and butter, as you so well put. We're a boxing gym. So you've come in here for pretty much the exact reason of what we sell. So our sales should be pretty high, a high percentage of sales because they've come for one thing. It's the only thing we offer.
It's in the name.
Yeah. See, I made it really simple. It's on the tin. It's a British thing. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't
it's
even
not like
say
Gym
tin.
Nation. Are they a gym or a nation?
I know. Tell me. I'm so confused. Is it 22 dirhams a month? Or is it 99? Or is it 120? No. Okay, I'm just kind of knocking their brand now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't really approve of you. But if you want to be able to do everything in a gym, then yes, go to Gym Nation. They have a nation of gymnasiums, but if you want to box, that's what we do. So yeah, when it comes to the product, that's clear. And so when someone comes in, I'm not trying to say, buy personal training, it's going to change your life, because I know that I can make a lot of money from selling that, right? No, I say, why are you here? What are your goals? What are your targets? What are you looking to achieve? Have you boxed before? And they tell me what they want. And then I say, well, this would be the best solution. I get asked a lot by clients. They're like, oh, Michelle, I see you have a fight night coming up. And I think they come to me because I'm like the face, and I don't know, maybe I hold some authority, I guess. I feel like it's kind of a coach question, but whatever. They still come to me and they ask things like, do I have to buy personal training to be able to enter the fight night? And I think that's a really good sales strategy. I don't know why I didn't think of that. But my authentic self says, no, you don't need to buy personal training to enter the fight night, because fight nights we have is to build boxing. I also get told, why don't you charge people to enter, to watch the fights? And I think that just takes away from what fight nights do. There are so many things I could do as a sales strategy, but really what customers are buying is our honesty, our community, our values, our integrity. And then, yeah, of course you have to pay to be here, because like the stuff doesn't come free. It's not a community center, we don't have any government funding.
It's not a charity.
Yeah. But I'm not trying to rip you off every second that I can. When someone asks, do I need personal training into fight night? No, you don't need personal training, but you will need a coach. So that means you need to speak to someone here and say, if I take these classes, will you let me fight? Will you be my coach? And you have to do sparring. And I kind of tell them of what they need to do. But I'm not going to go and try to upsell them to personal training. That's Sarah's job. Because trust me, she will.
You've outsourced your greed.
No, I promoted her to sales and marketing manager, which means that is her job. And I did a lot of great training with her and the team on sales, because sales is an important skill set. And I think that learning to ask someone for money does require training. Some people are happy saying, so are you paying card or cash? But Sarah wasn't when she first started. Like, we did training, and actually you guys were around for a lot of our training and stuff, because when we reopened after COVID, there were a lot of things that we had to do to bring in new business so that we could survive. And sales training was one of them. I spent a lot of time role playing, sales script, even learning myself. I was watching YouTube videos all the time about like how to sell a gym membership. And trust me, go to my YouTube, my search and stuff, like how to make more money in a gym. Like, these are basic things I was Googling because I was so desperate for us to survive after COVID that I didn't care that I didn't have all the answers. I was going to find them, and then I was going to train my team, and we were going to do this. And I think if you're not willing to get your hands dirty when things get rough, you know, to get yourself up off the canvas, and pass those skills on, and asking for money is an important skill. You have to close your sale. You can't just make a good pitch. You have to actually close the pitch. And how you do that is a lot to do with, your personality, authenticity. Like, the way I close is easy. I tell my story and people are like, now I want a membership. You know, it's really easy because I'm telling them the truth. But the way you sell, say, 13,000 in a day, there needs to be a system, and you need to be able to close. You have to be able to close that sale.
Yeah, and in your business, selling never stops, right? Because you require people to come back month after month after month after month. So your customer experience actually becomes your sales
Your
tool.
sales, yes, exactly. And it's something I'm always explaining to coaches and to reception team that we have an entire customer experience, and I wrote it down as my first, my ideal first gym experience, something like that. I wrote it down as like an entire story from the time they call up, because you get a lot of calls in a day, you get a lot of Instagram messages, even our WhatsApp has become public somehow. It's not a bad thing. I'm just mean, like, it's not like it's advertised anywhere really, except for on Instagram it says like call, WhatsApp, DM, like all these points to generate contact, you know, contact us. And these are all things that are now standard. They're all put into, like, when you post, you do this. When you answer the phone, you answer like this. When a customer asks, what's the price? You don't tell them, say, $570 for the month. No, you say, oh, have you boxed before? You go into a
Where
script.
have you been before?
You try to find out what is going to be important to them, because the value is only based on the value. So the price will only matter when you say all the great things they're getting for only $570 a month.
Yeah.
You know, and then, but if you're like $570 a month, they're like, all right, fine, thanks. How are you gonna follow up with that? There's nothing you can do with that.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone realizes that much training goes into that. And that's why success happens, because with intention, like, things happen with intention. It's not by accident. I think 2019, a lot of things were by accident, because of my intention with customers was so good that I was becoming a great community. And then 2020 was intention on sales, like really kind of streamlining the business, which when you asked about the franchise, it's because I spent a lot of my time down in lockdown writing my franchise, and it had to do with systemizing the business. I thought you were going to give me a cactus.
I'm going to give you... Have you heard
I've
this
read
book?
that book, yeah.
Because when you're talking about systemizing things, this has helped us so much.
It's a great book.
And it points to a lot of things that we've actually talked about. Technical versus sales, taking on the multiple roles, having a checklist, a customer experience that is standardized so that it can be measured and it can be repeated even by a monkey if you give it to them. And one of the things that comes out for us from this, from what you're talking about, we actually started doing sales workshops for our customers as a non-paid service, because it doesn't matter how many leads we generate through our ad campaigns if they're not gonna close.
100%.
And we figured out this whole 1 hour workshop where we take novice salespeople, so people who don't have any experience, and then teach them the psychology of sales, which is, you know, don't just say 570 and
wonder why no one's buying.
When can I book you in? It's like, no, you haven't earned the right to book them in. You got to earn that right. And you got to do that through questions. You got to probe a little bit. You got to set the stage, and then you got to deliver the bang. And a lot of businesses in Dubai want their marketing to solve all their sales problems. or they want their sales to solve marketing problems. They work hand in hand, right? It's a well-oiled machine. But jumping to the checklist and systemizing your business and franchising it, how was that process for you? Was that easy? Did it come naturally? Was it on a napkin?
Definitely not a napkin, except for my tears. That I was crying while I did it. It's a lot more complicated business, and because I am a little bit of a control freak, when I was giving all my information to my franchise consultancy to upload to the franchisee system. So when they, instead of an operations manual, which is like old fashioned, my franchise consultancy has a web-based thing. So all your folders are there and I can instantly update things for the franchisees. And so I'm sending them all this stuff. And he's like, I don't want anyone to know this. He's like, but this is the best like information I've ever received from a franchisor before. He goes, it's so detailed, it's so well presented, it's so systemized. And I was like, that's not how it's supposed to be done. Like, I assumed if someone was going to open a real boxing only, what are they buying? Surely they're buying the automatic success of a business, which means that how you do your sales, how you hire people, your HR policies, your marketing strategy, the way you answer the phone, the class programs, the quality control, like all those things I assume is what they're looking for. And I was like, is that not the case? And he's like, no one puts as much time as you put into this. And it was nice to hear, because that was a very stressful process for me. And it's not even over yet. It's
never over.
It's never over. That is true. But especially for me, like, I'm still looking at, I'm like, so much work to do. This isn't done. I want this. And I've actually requested more funding just for the franchise company, because there's some things that I want to do that I see will benefit in 5 years when I have 200 franchisees. And I want to do that from now. And it's some of the things that I've learned from the gym itself, the headquarters, the original, RBO1, that as we grew really fast in the last 12, 14 months, I kind of had to rethink like what I wanted for the franchise, because when you double your team so fast and your client base increases so much, like I look at how like onboarding, training, quality control, managing bookings, disciplinary action, like all sorts of things that come to head when you are all of a sudden have all these people that are kind of new hires and you've thrown them off the deep end. But then also my overheads increased, and I was like, what is this coming from? Like, why am I spending so much money? I'm not making any money. I'm making an increased amount of sales. Like we doubled our sales and we broke records in our sales from I think November, December, January, February, March, April, May. Like May was a massive month, which is so strange. It's May. It's not like a particularly great month. But like those all happened, and I was spending so much money as well. I was like, salaries are huge and you can't even claim VAT on them. I was like, help. So then you start going into the finance side of my franchise model. And so I've kind of been looking at things again, and I shifted things around about when I will actually really push the franchise out more. I already have a very kind of active inquiry that's been ongoing. I'm hoping to hear more soon, although I don't want to jinx it. So
if you're them, call her now.
Or don't listen to this and know I was talking about you. Awkward. It's I won't get into that. Okay. But I have booked a booth in the London franchise show in April.
Awesome.
Next year. And so that's kind of my target of when I will then like really push out on that. Because then I feel as though I've given myself enough time kind of after paying back COVID, growing, and then being like, what's happening? Like the horse's head and the Godfather.
Chicken's head?
The horse's head and the Godfather. And the
yes.
sheets,
Oh,
the bloody sheets.
wow, okay.
That kind of
Visual.
moment.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And I fired my accounting firm, and then like I'm now actually my big accomplishment of 2021 was I now became my own accountant
Hey,
for
you
the company.
filed your own VAT return.
Yes, I did.
Congrats.
Yeah, I filed my first. It's
Yeah.
not like we haven't been doing VAT, but my first
Yeah.
VAT return, on my own. And then I was finishing all of December on December 31st. That was my big, exciting New Year's Eve. Everyone was like, what'd you do? And I was like, I went clubbing. Big night out. I was in bed by 11.
At the FDA, there's this new club called the Federal Tax Authority.
Yeah, you have to have like a TRN to get in.
Yeah.
You're not one of those.
What drinks did you get? Invoices?
It's an accounting thing. It's
Yeah.
hip. Yeah, so that was kind of a big thing for me. And it's given me a lot of perspective as well on the business. And that was one of the lessons that I wasn't learning. And I kind of heard recently that someone says that I hate people that say that everything happens for a reason, but I'm one of those people that say everything happens for a reason. It doesn't mean that it's exactly what you think, like someone getting sick, oh, that happened for a reason. No, but maybe you are supposed to learn something around that. Or maybe you who's not sick and you're watching someone that you care about being sick, maybe it's important for you to feel certain things to, everyone's life has a purpose. And if you're not paying attention to the things being thrown at you, then you don't ever move forward. And I wasn't wanting to learn the whole accounting thing. I told you I'm not strong at math and I don't care about it and I don't like it, and I pretty much avoided it my whole life. And there is another saying, I listen to a lot of motivational things, and he says you're not good at math because you don't ever study. I feel like that was really simple advice, and it was like, okay, thanks, I'll just go over here. And I think I needed to be put in a situation this year where my former accounting firm were doing my books, and then it became time to franchise, and I realized that they didn't know anything about my business. And I thought, I've been paying you for 10 months. How can you not know anything about my business? And then I hired a new accountant, and they said, your books are all wrong for the entire year. And so then they started kind of explaining to me what was wrong. And then I had a financial advisor look at it, and he was like explaining things. And I was like really frustrated. I'm supposed to franchise, and I feel as though I'm lost, right? Like, I was like, how is this possible? What's going on? And blah, blah, blah. And they started explaining things about my business in numbers that was really important for me to hear. They're like, you're a subscription-based business. So if someone buys a year, then that's accrued revenue. They're like, your accountant was putting it in just as a cash revenue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And same with the prepaid expenses. They didn't have any. They just, when I paid the rent, like a big check, they just put it in. And so no wonder they couldn't tell me anything about my business, is because they didn't know anything about my business. Because when you do it that way on a subscription
base, volatility in the months, yeah.
So then you're like, I'm making so much money. And then sometimes I like, oh, look, I'm making a profit. And then like, no one could answer these questions for me. And I did what I normally do, was just fired them on a whim, which, by the way, there's like a 3-month notice period.
Breakup period. Yeah.
So anyway, they're not very happy with me, and we're kind of going back and forth. I'll put that nicely. Going back and forth. They're coming forward, and I'm saying, going. No, I'm not paying you.
My
You
doorbell's
didn't
not
do
working.
your job. It went into spam. I didn't get your email.
Yeah. I wasn't in the country. Where were you? In COVID.
Yeah, so I'm still working on it with them, but I really don't want to pay anything. Like, I don't want to do any. Like, I was like, what? Show me. I'm like explaining to them. And now that I'm actually doing the stuff, I think, so you really didn't do anything. Because if I'm doing it, and I was trying to do my profit and loss for the year, and there's like half the revenue, the annual revenue is missing, and I'm like, where's that? So I go look at like January, February, March, and they just didn't put any sales in the accounting system. So I was like, so now I can't even see what I did for the year, because you literally just like didn't do anything.
But hey, it's good. It's like finding change on the couch, right?
It's like, yay. yay! Except for this is like losing change in the couch. It's not finding change. This is like
the opposite.
there was cash in my pockets. Now there's no cash in my pockets, and no one can explain where it went. So it's not great. But what's great is that I finally learned what I was meant to learn. And because my accounting firm that I had until last month were like, we really can't give you proper feedback until we go and correct the entire year. And they wanted more money for that. And I said, I'm not comfortable with this situation. What can we do? And she said, well, I'll just train you. And I was like, that's a great solution. I was like, it's daunting. And I was like, but I think after all of this, it's probably what's necessary. And it really has been. It's been really good for me to kind of take a hold of that. I'm still probably miles behind, because when she was teaching me the depreciation thing, I was like, so over my head.
You're like, useful life what?
I know, and I was like, I don't get it. Like, why is this here? I didn't actually lose money. Like, I only care about the many, not like depreciation and calculate, blah, blah, blah. And she's like showing me how to put it in and stuff. And I was like, she's like, no, please don't mess up my depreciation prepaid expenses sheets. And I'm like, oh, no, I won't. It's good.
I don't understand it enough to mess with it.
Yeah, I was like, I won't touch it at all. So I did my VAT return. However, I did not update the depreciation for October, November, and December. She doesn't know that yet because I'm my own accountant.
Yay!
Which is probably really dangerous now. But it's important because also my loan for my expansion is due this year as well.
Okay.
So I'm reviewing that and kind of counting pennies because, now I'm that person where I'm like, nope, that's not right. It's off by 0.01. So we'll have to redo the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut down on the coffees.
Yeah, cutting down on everything.
Yeah. Well, I hope that trip to London is fruitful.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Hopefully everything stays open, and touch wood, you'll do well. Are you going alone?
It depends. It depends on how the company's doing here.
Okay.
My franchise consultant will be there. So they're a UK-based consultancy.
Okay. So
I look forward to actually growing in the UK because they have a lot of offices there. So here, it'll be very limited because it's not a large population.
Yeah.
So maybe 3 max franchises I'll sell here in the UAE. A couple more maybe in the region, but my biggest growth will happen in the UK.
In the UK.
Yeah. Okay. So the exhibition is quite important.
Okay. I'll look forward to that. But I wanted to ask you one last question about business, and then go on into a bit more Michelle.
Oh,
I guess.
Aren't you tired of her yet?
Nope. Not at all. But let's talk about team building for a second.
Oh,
because
you had to pick that subject, huh?
Of course I had to. I've been reading what you wrote. But, okay, backstory is that if you're starting to think about culture, and this is how I think of it, if you're starting to think of culture in your business, it's a luxury that you have. You're thinking about that because you're not thinking about survival only anymore. When you were just starting out, or at least when we were starting out, we weren't thinking culture. We were just like you, kind of going, and figuring out the way as we go. So recently we've been thinking about our culture, and mostly in retrospect, because that's the best we can do. I don't think we have a bit of intentionality and a bit of organic parts to our culture. But you mentioned earlier about yourself and how you look at leadership, and you've also talked online about a team versus a family, if I can say versus. Could you expand on that first? Is your team like a family? Should a team be like family? What's the whole deal about that thought process?
I feel like people are not going to like me for saying this, but I don't think a team should be family. I think that it's a business, and family makes things messy. It doesn't mean that you don't have empathy. It doesn't mean that you don't have good culture. It doesn't mean that you don't have good relationships. But you can't run a good business if it's run like a family business. The reason they say family and business don't mix is because it really doesn't in 98% of the time. And it's because of the family element. And it'll be like brothers arguing with each other, sisters taking money from the company because the brother felt bad and decided to just start giving them directors loans and stuff. And it's so bad for business. And the same thing when teams walk around saying, oh, we're like a family. So when that team member decides to leave with no notice and it costs the company money, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to treat them like a family member, or are you going to treat them like a team member? And I feel as though it's a lot more clear when it's a team member. When it's a family, it gets messy and people get offended that you're trying to run a business and they confused it with family. It still happens, even if I'm clear that it's not family, because people think that because you're nice, you'll just be a pushover. But in the end, I'm a leader that is kind and, okay, not always kind. I'm a leader that aims to be kind and empathetic, but I am not a good leader if I don't take care of everyone who is employed by me. And that means if I make a loss trying to help someone else and I can't take care of the others, or the business suffers because I'm keeping someone on who's detrimental, then it impacts the business. And so that does not make me a good leader. You have to make good business decisions, and yeah, you should spend time with your team and train them and build them and have patience for that. But in the end, a rotten apple is going to ruin the entire basket, and that decision is never easy to make, whether they're a family, team member, or a pain. That's still a hard decision to make. Personally, for me, I'm sure some people are just like cutthroat about it, but I still lose sleep over things like that.
Yeah, I got my first management role at around when I was 27, and I was managing people that were 42, 50, some were younger, and I never understood the dynamics that you explore as a leader. It's like nothing else, that there's no other comparison in life experiences versus running a team. You're a psychotherapist. You are an organizer. You have 6 brains because you have to think for everyone. You start developing multiple personality syndrome because you have to talk to people like they like to listen to get your message across. And you go from having 1 job to 9 jobs or 20 jobs.
20.
Depending
that
on
aren't
who
even
you
your
are.
job because you're paying someone else to do that job.
Because you're paying someone else. But sometimes it's just faster to do it yourself.
Or you're
if
still doing it yourself. Or you're still checking on it. And you're like...
Yeah. Or as your accountants will learn, that if you want to get something done right, just do it yourself. Right? So how have you grown in that regard when it comes to getting, or did you always have this trusting people to do the work that they've been told to do, guiding them through it, delegating?
No.
What's that journey been like?
I don't trust anyone, and I feel like that's a good thing and a bad thing in me. I feel that I should listen to myself more. I should listen to my gut. I should be confident in my decisions and stop trying to make everyone happy. I have this idea in my head that I can create a business where all the clients are happy and I can give my team members this great life, right? Well, when they hear that, they then think that everything they want is what you're required to give them. And that's something that I've had a really hard time learning, is that no, I can only give them what is available. How they get more of that is based on what they earn, like their place of promotion, or it's not always about how many hours you put in, it's what you're actually giving. Are you actually learning? Are you taking away from my time with giving me a headache? I already have decision fatigue almost every single day because the amount of decisions I have to make, that I just half the time I'm thinking, why am I being asked this? And going back and saying, just answer the question, and doing that is still, like, every single evening I have decision fatigue. And if someone is taking a lot of money and I'm not paying myself, but I'm still doing their job, they are not worth that money, and it's nothing to do with them as a person. it's just to do with, like you said, when you first started a management position, learning to manage is a very, very difficult thing to do. And it doesn't mean that you automatically earn a large salary if you're not able to do it. And I think that was, people management is my biggest headache, and is a constant learning curve for me. And finding good team members is not easy either. Hiring in Dubai is not easy. The cost of hiring in Dubai is very high. People come to the city with an idea of what they think they're going to get here. And I'm just learning to only offer what is available. It doesn't mean that just because it's not what they want, that I'm bad. It's only the job that I have to give them. And there are ways that you can earn more, but it's going to require you to work. And I'm a fair employer. I have good benefits. I have a good working environment. And as long as all my team members are good people, which you do have bad hires on occasion, it happens. I won't hate myself forever because of that. But once you clean house, then you have to kind of rebuild that culture again. I recently had some difficult in hiring, and they've kind of had an impact on the rest of the team. So right now, if you want to know about team building, which is why I sighed when you said it, it's a work in progress right now. We cleaned house and we are now rebuilding and working on what works for us, the ones that are here, the ones that made the cut. And all laughs aside, I actually do say that I'm not naturally a team player, and that's a little bit to do with my kind of introverted side and middle child, Capricorn, so many things going against me. I kind of like just do it myself and don't understand why I have to sit and sing Kumbaya and be like, you're doing really great, the compliment sandwich. I'm not a huge fan. I'm like more of a here's what's happening salad, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But I also know that I have the capability to do what is necessary. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of good communication. It's a lot of belief in what you're doing, confidence in what you're doing, listening to your team, but not always agreeing with them. It's okay that they have an opinion. It doesn't make it right. Telling them when they're not being a team player, asking how they can be a team player, what do they need. Doesn't mean you can always give it, but if you at least know what people want out of life, then it gives you a better idea versus trying to have them do something that they're not any good at. So why are they there? If they're not any good at it and they don't like it, then maybe they should move to something else. Maybe they should be somewhere else. So yeah, it's a tough gig.
When we do our...
That's my reply. That's all I got.
When we do our monthly reviews, one of the questions we ask our team is, what is the thing that you're enjoying the most, and which part of your job is the most challenging? And typically the answer about the challenging part is always something they don't like. Mm-hmm. And what we try to explain to, I still haven't found a way to explain this properly to them, but someday I'm going to crack the code. But
or you won't, because they don't want to get
there's light at the end of the tunnel. But it's such a
holding on, damn it.
But it's such a virtuous cycle, right? If you don't like something, you're never going to get good at it. If you're not good at it, it's obvious you're not going to like it.
You don't like math because you didn't study. Ding!
Hey, exactly. And that's something that we try to keep a track of. So what are the things that you're finding challenging? And then once in a while, we have that tough conversation. If you don't like what you're doing, you're never going to get good at it. Mm-hmm. And you need to tell me now, if you're going to try to like this thing, please like it. I've made you all these checklists.
I've made all the checklists.
No, it's very serious, very similar in that way. The fight that we're having internally is we're making all these training programs, these checklists, these extra Loom videos on how to do things. And even after that, if you're messing up, there's something else is up. It's not the technical ability. It's something in your mind that's stuck.
I spoke to someone recently who kind of surprised me because it was it was a meeting for something else, and then like it turned into almost like a therapy session. It was weird. I don't want to talk about it, but
kind of like this conversation.
it got into the whole like staff thing, and like I've done everything. I've laid it out. I've tried like team building and training and talking nicely and talking meanly and warnings and discipline, like, and checklists and everything. And then he turned to me and he said, "But do they share the same values as you?" And I thought, who are you? You know, I was like, yeah. I was like baffled by this question, and it was really annoying actually, because I'm not normally baffled by someone. So I took on board what he said, and I thought, you know what? I kind of like what he said, because sometimes I do need to kind of be like punched in the face. And it helps me generate ideas and thoughts and kind of find my motivation, not motivation, my fire. I'm best when I'm on fire. And that means you also get the downside of me, which is like, I'm like throwing stuff and why isn't this done? I'm like edgy. I'm like up all the time, coffee, you know, and I'm there. I'm always there. And you're like, why is she always here? She sees everything I'm doing, Michelle. And you're like, why are you doing this? Where's your shirt? What's this? Blah, blah, blah. But I'm best when I'm like that. And the first thing I did, I couldn't make our team meeting at the end of the year because I was sick. But I spoke to like my head coach, and I spoke to Sarah, and then I provided a sheet that said, what are your key 6 values, life values? And then I said, what do you believe the company's key 6 values are? And I thought, you know what, it's just a good way for me to actually see, 1, what do they think that we believe in? And 2, what do they believe in? And since I've come back, I've been going through that with each person, and going through our mission, vision, and values, and going through my ideal gym experience, my vision for why I created the gym, new ideas of what I want to do. And I'm spending an hour with each person. And it's too soon to say whether it's working or not, but I feel as though I always go through this like flip-floppy stage where I think I have a head coach and I have a head of sales and marketing, and I don't need to be involved day to day. And then I go through and I am like hands in everywhere, like, you know, like fingerprint, you know, you can imagine like I'm like fingerprints everywhere, and like Michelle was here. And I feel as though when my hands are in everywhere, I actually have a better kind of connection with the team. And that's how I become a team player, because I'm there, I'm listening, I'm engaging, I'm spotting where maybe we've missed things, where we've lost sight of things, how things work, how the coaches are feeling, how each team member is performing. And I like to think that I need to stop thinking that I can let that go, and kind of be okay with that, and spend more time individually with my team members. So I want to do more monthly meetings individually. There's quite a few, so I can't do it weekly. I have considered doing it weekly, but then I think I pretty much just be meeting with my staff all week. And then we already set in the calendar for the year ahead 3 activities that are in their diary. So there'll be 2 team building and then 1 end of year dinner. And that means outside team building. So it's whether it's a military boot camp where you're carrying each other around climbing mountains, or maybe it's that adventure park where you're doing like zip lines and you have to like climb ropes and it's kind of like a team thing, or basketball, a team sport. Imagine boxers playing a team sport, unheard of. You know, things like that will help with team building, because we don't really do anything outside of work together that would require you to kind of have a
collaborate and
where you're like, I need you to catch me if I fall kind of thing, which builds a good rapport with the other person outside of work, because then you kind of have that respect for them. If they let you fall, then you know, you're kind of failing there. You know, like, dude, you're supposed to catch me. You know, but it builds that kind of spirit that you can't get just internally all work all the time.
You know what the funny thing is, tell me if you relate to this, when we were employees, we'd find this stuff really cheesy.
And I know my employees do too, and that's why they always try to cancel. And then I'm like offended, like a mom. We just don't do anything together anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole day's canceled. I'm not coming.
Yeah. No, we used to like cringe at, management coming to us and be like, hey guys, we're going to do this thing. Like, I don't want to go with you. You're like my mom.
You're so old.
You're talking about values. Oh. And then, we find ourselves in the similar boat, kind of writing down our values. We did it differently though. I'm excited to see how yours kind of works out. So what we did, we wrote our values down amongst ourselves, and then we delivered it to the team over a lunch. So it wasn't one-on-one, and it wasn't asking them what they think our values are, which I think is pretty cool that you did it that way. We kind of fed them our values, I think, and now it's making me think twice about what we did. I might want to take a page from your book.
It's okay to make mistakes.
Oh.
I don't, but I've heard it's okay.
I knew I wasn't perfect. But I think team is something that we can talk about forever and ever and ever and ever. I think we should have a round to just on that. I want to move on to away from business to Michelle, as I said earlier. And we've already touched on a few things that I wanted to bring up on your growth and how you're growing. And it's all through the experiences that you've shared. Hopefully people get some pointers from that for themselves as well. But I'm going to be a little bit selfish right now for myself and areas that I'm struggling with. And I look at you as, maybe you disagree, but a real life Katniss Everdeen. If you are.
Huge fan.
If you are.
Thanks for that.
For a bunch of reasons.
I won't let that go to my head because you know my motto.
You talked about Gary. I look up Gary Vee's quote again. I just binged the whole thing over the holidays. I read book 1, then I watched movie 1, then I read book 2, then I watched.
You're not a nerd at all.
No, not at all, not at all. And then you mentioned you are your best when you're on fire, and you think I couldn't bring this up? I actually.
I do have a lot of time for Katniss Everdeen because she is kind of a clumsy leader. Like she doesn't know what she's doing, and she just kind of wings it. So I do have. I like that. Thank you.
That was
a big compliment for me. I am a clumsy leader. I was
going to say, no, Katniss is not perfect, right? But she is present in the moment. She doesn't always know what she's doing, but she's doing it with ferocity.
Right? I'm jumping, but with
a
really feisty mindset.
Before she does anything, she questions all sides of it, 100% imposter syndrome. And then when she does it, she's actually proud that she did it. And then she's like, what did I do?
Yeah, and she doesn't understand why people are following her or why, she was just kind of doing her thing. And that's how I felt about boxing. I just wanted to do that. And, Okay. I'm also a rebel and an anarchist. So there's a few other aspects.
Do you like wearing black?
That's like asking if I like bread.
Wait, do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so
don't you?
Girl on fire. Patience. Oof. I have very little of it. I'm still new in this journey. I'm less than 2 years of owning a business. People tell me it takes a while for it to stabilize. Yes. When will it happen, and how do I control myself?
There is no deadline to this, and there's 2 types of patience. There's short-term and long-term. I have 0 short-term patience. Ask Sarah. If she doesn't reply to my WhatsApp, I'm like, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. If I say, why has this not happened? Then I'm like, 2 seconds later, hello? I have a sense of urgency, constant urgency. I feel like I am always late, that I'm late to the party in general, of life. I have so much to do and I want it done now. And
I want to catch up.
Yeah, I'm just urgent all the time. And I also believe that's important. I believe that if you wait, you will lose. And so if I decide I'm going to do something, then I go and I do it. I don't put it off to next week or next month. And I have a lot of kind of press contacts. I do a lot of still PR for the gym and stuff. They hate me because I'll be send them get my email, and then I'll be like, hey.
Calling you to let you know that I sent you an email. Yeah.
Just check it. Oh, okay, cool. When do you think? Oh, okay, next week. Okay, next week. And then every day I'm like, hey, did you need anything? You know, and they're like, stop messaging me. And I'm like, is it up? Today is it up? So will it be up today?
So are you working on this, or are you? It looks like you're very happy.
Because I think it's an important aspect, and I appreciate that of my of my characteristic. Long-term patience is something else I have, which I wouldn't have really kind of termed myself as that. But as I look at myself, I do think I do have long-term patience, because I have the patience to see the future of building something every single day. I still get up at ridiculous time in the morning, and I'm still excited to go in. And I think that does require a sense of patience, because I know that I will get there, and I know that we will be a massive success, and I'll have so many franchises, and I know that I will probably fall on my face like 10, 20, 30 times. I will fail. Things will not go according to plan, but I still get up with this stupid naivety that it's going to happen, and that it's an exciting day today, and that people are nice, and I still believe all these things. And I think that's because I am patient enough to say that it's going to happen, and I'm going to get there, but I have to do the work, and I have to learn the lessons, and I have to keep pushing, and I have to keep getting better. And that is long-term patience. Because like I said, we were in second year in 2019, and we weren't making a ton of money. And, then COVID came, and we lost a bunch of money, and then we had to pay it all back in 2021. It's like, hello.
So you just remind yourself that you've been here before.
Yeah.
You've waited it out.
What did I do?
Yeah.
No, I don't wait.
Okay.
What did I do in that period? Like, what was I feeling? Who was I? What was I? And I try to recreate, and I do remind myself that we've been here, because I think it's important not to think the world is ending. Mm-hmm. I'll just quit, because that's the easiest solution. And so I need to remind myself of who I was from day one, when I first decided to open the gym. Remember that big black hole when I was looking for fitness equipment and where the ring should be and all that stuff. And I think she was awesome. She was just, there was no one stopping her. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, think about her. What did she have? And then after we came out of COVID, that's when we got to know you guys. And who was I then? And I was very face to face with the team, training, learning, absorbing lots of information, speaking with clients. And now, as we come out of another kind of hard year, I think that's who you have to be. And you have to be that person always, actually, I think. I think that she excels as that person. And that when I get complacent, I lose that person. And then I feel as though we dip. So patience with yourself long-term is also probably, there's 3 patiences. I have 3 patiences.
Big menu of patiences. Which one would you like today?
Patient with myself, to be okay that I don't always get it right, and that I can remind myself that you're being a bit of a loser these days, but it's okay. It's not long term. What do you need to do to get back to that person? So, and knowing what inspires you to get back to that person as well will help you get there faster, so you don't have to have as much patience.
Okay, that kind of, I heard a few things in there that leads to my second piece or second question about how I could or people could improve. You talked about the long-term patience, which I'm going to equate to thinking big. You talked about you don't wait, and you talked about inspiring yourself. How do you recommend people that do a lot more talking than action when it comes to thinking big, not waiting, moving ahead? Is there a certain internal dialogue that goes on in your mind that pushes you, or you find yourself moving already intuitively without putting too much thought into it? Or are you having those chats with yourself?
I do both. Often when I feel as though I'm not moving forward, I'll actually take the time to write down where I want to go, what I need to do. I'm highly motivated by lists, goals, things that give me clear direction. That kind of reignites a fire within, because I'm reminding myself of who I am, what I stand for, what I dream of. And I also look at some of the things that I may be failing at and say, okay, so here's what we're going to do to improve upon that. Because when I take action is when I propel myself forward. When I talk about something and I don't take action, it's when I propel myself back. And that is where I find really quite demotivating. And that's why physical activity is quite important for me, because as long as I'm challenging myself physically, I feel as though my mind follows. And I found in the last 6 months, I haven't done that much training, physically running or anything. And I feel as though that had a huge impact on our performance in the business for the last 6 months. And it was like, I didn't do anything to help myself get out of that. So I didn't train. I didn't give myself challenges, nothing. I just kind of like just stayed there. And I feel as though the business just stayed there because of that. And then I let things go. I kind of was like complacent. I was so many things that I felt I didn't do right in the last 6 months. And so when I came to December and I was pretty much like, this year was not ideal. Started out great. I was like, we were flying. And then what happened, you know? And I was just like, I won't be here next year like this. And so I spent like the holiday period just focusing on what it is I'm going to do now to not be here again. And simple things like I decided I'm going to run every day for 365 days. Third
Small
run.
task.
Yeah, third run. I'm already like, might be a long-term goal that I maybe didn't think through. There's no like.
So it was 365 out of 700 days, I think it was. I'm not good at math. I'm not sure.
I was like, there's no real immediate target, you know? I'm like,
how about we start with 30?
yeah, I was like, I kind of like month target, but that's the problem, isn't it? Is when you set yourself too short of goalposts, and then what happens after that? Then you have to set another one. So I kind of set myself to say, no, you're going to be this person every day. And that's why I chose 365 days, is because I don't want to be good start to the year, bad start to the year. I want to be that person every single day. And the running is often linked to my performance. And so I thought it seemed like a really good thing to do, to kind of be like, no, this is who you're going to be every day. And you're going to learn to make this as part of your life. And that means the same thing as how you handle your team every day, how you handle clients every day, how you handle your tasks. You're going to be that person every single day. And we know that habits are formed by repetition.
Yep.
And so I have this huge intention of being that person permanently by the end of the year.
Yeah, if you make the direct inference from physical activity, what has paid off for me has been consistency rather than volatile amounts here and there. Even though for some people that kind of works too. In physical activity, it's either rest or fully sprint or somewhere in between. I find that translates so well into our business thing too. Like we're talking about team and doing reviews. You can't just do, 3 monthly reviews and not do another 3 months and then come back and do all 3 in 1 month. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It only works if it's done repeatedly.
Because then they see you as consistent. If you're not consistent, I feel like it has a big impact on your kind of credibility.
Yep.
Which there are some things that I've not been consistent on. So I can only imagine that's why my team sees me as not credible.
No, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We already touched on imposter syndrome. We've talked about that. I want to talk about the last piece of advice, if you have this, or how do you think about accountability? Is it internal? Is it external? Do you have someone watching over you and holding you accountable? Do you do it yourself? Do you have a check-in with yourself? How do you measure your progress on your goals?
I'm quite independent in that aspect. I do manage myself quite well. But I feel as though that when you have a team and a company and clients, that you're accountable to them. So I am accountable every single day to them, and I perform for them. I meet certain targets for them. I believe in what we have to do for everyone else. So, accountability, I kind of take care of myself on that, but then I also see who's looking at me, who's relying on me, and that's who I'm accountable to. I have, in the last probably 6 months, 12 months, been interested in a business mentor, but I'm looking for a very specific type of mentor, and it's not as easy to find, I don't think. And I kind of still working on that. But
do you have any candidates? No. I met someone. I'm not paying him yet, but I signed up to his email newsletter. And by the way, Alina tells me your emails are awesome. I should check them out. She reads them religiously.
At least someone does.
It's like a slap in her face every once in a while, just like, get up, get off your ass, do something, effort, cheese.
Cheese.
No, I signed up to this newsletter by this local consulting company, and some of the things you're saying really resonated with my level of thinking, and I felt like he was talking to me. So I reached out to him. I said, great job, really appreciate this, small talk, the stuff you love. And he reached back, and his response is really great too. And one thing led to another, and I took him out to lunch. And in 2 hours of lunch, we were supposed to meet for an hour. We sat for 2.5, 3 hours in the middle of a workday, just talking about everything. And we just bonded in a way that I didn't feel like I was talking to a coach, and he didn't feel like he was selling me. I even told him, what would it take for you to take me on? Mm-hmm. And he said, you need work before you can come to me. You need to do your own work. So he recommended these books, and I go read these. I try a few things, fail at a few things, and then come to me. So I still wanted to score a free session with him. So guess who was guest number 3 on this podcast? I got a free coaching session for 2 hours, but we both are kind of setting this goal for this year or next year, kind of similar. We're looking for the wise owl, not someone to tell us what to do, but just someone to help us think differently, laterally maybe, or get outside our own shell, because we don't come from that kind of family, in the sense that our parents and our uncles and aunts have all been employees, or, as with you, no one told us that we could achieve whatever we wanted to achieve, take over the world, et cetera, et cetera. It was go do a degree, get a job, wait for the promotion.
My mom's favorite saying, everything in moderation.
Yep.
I feel like that's a death sentence.
We were told to rest after any sort of exertion, a little bit of exertion.
Listen to your body.
Yeah, listen to your body, just like, don't push through the pain. The pain tells you to stop.
It's your body telling you to slow down. Okay, you slow down. I'll check you later.
No, that's exactly it. We used to get fed with all kinds of, I don't even know how to say it, but excuses that were handed to us and prepackaged so that we can use them throughout our life. So we're on the same path, looking for someone to challenge us. I want to ask you about Dubai, though. You did mention about franchising, and you talked about, there are certain things that are very unique to Dubai, and there are certain things that just is a mishmash of the world. But in terms of business in general, for those looking to do business in Dubai, whether it's a gym, any other service, any other products, how do you feel about doing business in Dubai?
Expensive.
Yeah.
That's my answer in one word, but I will expand. I think free zone companies and certain companies probably have an advantage that they don't spend as much as I do. But my company costs a lot of money to run on a daily basis. And I don't feel as though there's any assistance coming forward to make it easier for me. And that would mean that I would have to increase my rates significantly to ever be super duper profitable. But that's just probably the post-COVID in me speaking, which is we lost a lot and we had to pay a lot. And it's just, I think there's a lot more they could do to make it easier for entrepreneurs with a DED license. And also they should control rent. And visas. I find visas really, really challenging to the hiring process.
Tricky.
Because, I paid for someone's visa and then I had to terminate them for poor attitude, and that's just a month after the visa was processed. And it's like, for what? So there's many things as a health and fitness industry as well that you have to have, which I agree with. I think it's important. But there are things like when I go to hire, they charge like, I think it's $200-$300 for an inspection of the facilities, which actually I found out is not the government charging. It's a separate entity, Kuehn Tashil, and they do inspections just to do the inspection, even though I'm 10,000 square feet and I'm only hiring like the 9th employee or the 10th employee. I'm pretty sure that we have plenty of space to hire people. So to pay for an inspection every single time I apply for quota it's enough already. Like, it's enough. There's too much.
And just the logistical point of doing that too, like thinking about it, organizing it, letting them come in, stocking up your toilet paper to let them know, like, look, we got enough for the new people.
So much toilet paper. It's not even that. It's just like I have to pay, a PRO, and
Yep.
It's time as well. And then you have like HR, you have a sponsor, you have license, I got fined as well for COVID, and I have to pay, a pest control contract. I have to pay a fire maintenance contract. I have to pay 20% per warehouse. I have 2 warehouses, which means I pay 40% tax sublease fee. 40% of my rent. 40% of my rent I pay on top of my rent as a sublease fee to be in a warehouse that I fit out, that I improved its value. So like, and I pay
40%.
Yeah, so it's 20 per warehouse, 20%. So my rent for the big warehouse, the first one, is $240,000 for the year, plus 20%, plus 15%, plus maintenance fee, plus admin fee, plus ijari fee. And that is actually a massively discounted rent from my first year, which was $345,000 rent, plus my municipality fee, my sublease fee, plus my VAT, plus my maintenance fee, plus my admin fee, plus my ijari fee. And that's just to rent the facilities. That's just to actually have a facility. And you have to get that to have a license. Like you have to have one and the same. And the license, like 30,000, 40,000, because you have to pay Boxing Federation, and you have to pay Authority of Sports, Youth and Sports. So, yeah, that's just to say, hi, I want to start a gym. And they're like...
So for anyone who's actually complaining about how high gym prices are on a monthly basis, please
what is your health worth?
Oh, just please understand the realities of running a health and wellness-based business here. Is that the same in the UK?
No, you can license a business for like $20. And you can rent places for nothing. That's the thing, is that like, just, in general, it's very, very expensive, and there's no corporate loopholes or anything. There's no government assistance, to help with new businesses or like small business loans, even, things that are good. That's why I have a private investor. So my loan wasn't repayable for 3 years. It's a matched bank interest, like 2.5%. My second loan for the second warehouse, it's not a very big loan, it's a very small loan. Interest free for the first year, no repayments. You know what I mean? So, but I got lucky because I work close with my investor. But imagine that I didn't have an investor, I wouldn't have a gym. So, and those loans do become payable. So on top of all the things we just discussed, I now am paying back loans as well.
Yeah. So everybody sign up for membership today. Okay.
But besides that, I don't mind doing business in Dubai. It's one of the things that I'm used to. I like kind of the unpredictability of it. It's a little bit like, the wild, wild west. You don't know what's going to happen. I had a supplier who pretty much just wouldn't print T-shirts because I was like a little overly aggressive. And he was like, I'm not servicing you. And he just like hung up. And I was like, so much attitude with that guy. Like, what's wrong with him? You know, well, fine, I'll just find someone else. You know, you think you're the only guy that prints t-shirts? Like, get a grip.
Commodity.
Your customer service sucks.
Yeah.
You know?
What are you selling, water?
Like, and I think the hardest thing about actually doing businesses in Dubai is that they don't care that you're the customer. You know, they're like, madam, stop using that tone. And I'm like, hi, hello, I'm the customer. Like, you work for me. And by the way, when I say that, it never ends well, because they're like, no, we don't work for you. And I'm like, but I'm paying you for something. So technically, yes, you work for me. I am the customer. They don't care. Yeah.
It's their rules over general common customer experience sense.
So I always I've learned over the time that I just kind of balance it well. And so if someone, like if a supplier's not kind of giving me the price and the service I want, I start kind of reaching out to another one. And if I'm happy with that, then I'll be like, well, I'll go somewhere else. And then I'll just switch. But you can't cut off your first one until you found the second one.
Yeah.
Because then if you don't find a second one,
land.
then you have to go back and be like, so I was wondering if you had a chance to look at my email.
Sorry, my tail's stuck between my legs.
I ate some humble pie this morning and I have a much better attitude. I am happy to agree to your terms.
But you're here for the long term though, right?
Yes.
Okay. Last question I want to ask you, related to that last line that I said, long-term goals. Where are you going from here?
Forever?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have a 10-year plan to have 250 franchises worldwide. And I also would like to be a motivational speaker. And it sounds so dumb to say that, but it's not because I think I'm anything special. I don't believe that anyone is special, but I do believe that I have a special message that I would like to help people get to a place where I know I wasn't. And then I came and arrived and I think, why did no one tell me this? Like, is it like a special club? Like, was I not allowed in? Like, how did I not know any of this stuff? And that's something that I'm quite passionate about and I would like to share that. I also believe that some of the things I've learned in business, I would like to write a book as well. And because, I've just recently started listening to Steve Bartlett. Is that his name? Stephen Bartlett?
I know his last book. I haven't read any of his stuff.
The CEO guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've kind of jumped onto that recently, and I find listening to him makes me feel less alone, because actually as a business leader, you do feel very alone. Like, I work really long hours. I can't really confide in anyone because I'm always expected to have all the right answers, and half the time I don't always know exactly that I made the right decision, but there's no one to say, did I make the right decision? You know, there's no one to be like, Mom, can I go outside and play? You know, it's like, I am outside, but I'm not sure if I'm supposed to play or what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, it's really hard kind of making those decisions and then taking criticism or making a bad decision and being like, you know, and I think since I started listening to him, I've kind of been like, it's not just me. This is how it's supposed to be. Okay. Phew. Because I was a little worried that something was wrong with me. Like I was flawed or something. Like, take her back to the store. Recall.
Check the back of the box. All the side effects were listed there. Loneliness, fatigue, everything was on there.
Yeah. So, so I kind of thought, you know what? I would like to also help other entrepreneurs, such as what we're doing here today, kind of discussing some of the things you go through that I just don't feel like people talk about enough. Like, it's just not out there enough. Everyone's like, oh, but you're so lucky, or, you know, I wish I could do that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, you know? Like,
the side effects are crazy. You also get diarrhea.
No one told me this. I want to go back to just like freelance copywriting. It was so simple and carefree. Yeah, so those are some of the things that I have planned. And then I did start a hand wrap brand as well. It's called Wraps. Super cool, like RWAAPZ.
Oh, cool.
Or Z, you may say. Wraps. And it's super cool. It's super modern. And I launched it last December, and I've sold all the wraps, and I've not done anything about it since. And it really annoys me because it's super awesome. But I believe that if you can't give something 100%, then it won't succeed. And I need to spend some time on the gym and the franchise before I can really get back into hiring someone to actually take that, because it's kind of a simple product to roll with. It's quite hip for an old fogey like me, I think. And it would really just kind of be a case of buying new supplies, getting a website you can buy online, and then getting someone to kind of roll with that.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not there yet, but that's something I really like to push.
But you got started.
Yeah, I started it was, I tested it on my own gym members. Seemed to be a good place to test it. I know what sold well, what didn't. And I also got a lot of ideas, because like everyone's like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. I would like this design. You should make this design, blah, blah, blah. When you're getting more. So I know it has legs, and it could go somewhere, and I could do all sorts of things like T-shirts and fight shorts and, all sorts of things to go with it. It's time.
Put it out to the universe now.
Time.
Take it back. I'll hold you accountable. Wraps with a Z at the end. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for everything that you've shared. Thanks for telling me all the reasons you're gonna, you wake up for, especially these last 4 things that you mentioned. Hopefully, people got something out of it. I know I did. Probably around 2 sometime.
Sure.
The only talk about team.
That one can't be public then.
Yeah. Okay. We'll leave the mics off. But where can people find you if they're looking for you? Are you present on social?
I am on Instagram, Mitch, MICH _ real boxing only.
Okay.
So Mitch stands for Michelle. Oh. Yeah. I had this thing
2 and
that
2.
people only call me Mitch because it's so butch.
Okay.
I'm like in boxing, like call me Mitch.
Yeah. Look at my wraps.
Wraps with a Z.
Thanks so much, Michelle.
Thanks for having me and for letting me ramble.
No, don't worry.
All right, thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. Please do share this episode with someone you think will enjoy it as much as you did. To find out who else will be coming on or to recommend someone I should talk to, please follow my Instagram. It's at myfirstbusinesspodcast, or go to the website myfirstbusinesspodcast.com. And that's all, folks.